This is part 2 of my response to this weird feminist guy who identifies as a lesbian, which isn't that any guy? Anyways, let's get back into it. Part 1 left off with him talking about gender norms. So let's continue. He's still on that same fucking topic.
And this goes beyond material possessions. Gender roles tell us how to act and behave.
Okay, great. It tells you how to behave, but isn't that what feminists are telling us to do? Just telling us we aren't allowed to say anything or criticizing feminism? So, in your mind, it's okay to be told what to do, just as long as it's something you agree with.
In that way, they're very closely linked with toxic masculinity. Men are supposed to be dominant and women are supposed to be submissive. Men are supposed to work a real job while women are supposed to stay home and take care of the kids.
You know, I find it funny that he starts off his video by saying,
I can't believe it's 2016.
And then he goes on talking as if it's the 1950s or something. We get it. Women were repressed, but now women have all the power and they just can't accept it. They are more than equal these days. They have more power than men in many different situations.
This all has the incredibly detrimental effect of putting people into little boxes, and we know that men and women are far more diverse than that.
And social justice warriors aren't the ones trying to put people into little tiny boxes. They seem to be the ones coming up with a million different identifying labels for everything. I mean, this guy is a man who identifies as a lesbian and is gender fluid, but to top it off, SJWs, they want to always label people based on their race, their sexuality. Now, I don't care about your fucking sexuality. You want to put shit up your butt? Hey, more power to you. However, having to introduce yourself as, hi, I'm a cis white male who feels that my birth gender most accurately identifies me as a person. It doesn't fucking matter. Why not take the statements people make at equal playing field? Not with the footnotes, this is a statement from a black male who has been oppressed his whole life, blah, 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 blah. We're all people. Some smarter than others, apparently.
And on top of all of that, gender roles completely erase the existence of gender non-conforming people.
Oh, it sure erased this person. I mean, nothing on this guy exactly a traditional gender norm. I mean, I guess if you looked at just parts of him, it's like a Mr. Potato Head of male and female. You got the female eyes, the male jaw structure, the female hair, and the male's Adam's apple.
Because there are people who feel in between or outside binary genders, or people who don't feel any attachment to gender at all. And talking about gender as a binary pretends that they don't exist.
3-year-olds can barely grasp the concept of where someone goes when they play peekaboo, and you expect them to be explained the intricacies of not identifying with a traditional gender norm? I mentioned in the last video, toy stores are color-coded so it's easier to identify where in the store the toys you're looking for are. They don't do it because they hate kids who identify as a different gender or gravitate more towards to that of the opposite sex. It's done to cater to the largest number of people. Are you that fucking dumb?
So when we say that we want to destroy gender roles, it doesn't mean we want to stop you from being a man. You're free to be whatever you want. We just want you to be able to decide what being a man means for you.
I don't think people are being arrested for being trans. Actually, it's considered a hate crime if you tag someone for being trans. So, you know, it's perfectly legal to be trans, but okay, so culture caters more to people who identify with their traditional gender. So what? I hate pop music, but I don't go to a restaurant and say, turn off that fucking Kesha and just put on something good like Nirvana. Maybe I should do that. But anyways, the point I'm making here is the world isn't here to please you. Society caters to what's normal because that's what most people can identify as. I'm not trans or gay, but I would certainly say that I'm far from being normal.
Rather than strictly adhering to arbitrary and oppressive gender roles.
It's only oppressive if you care what society thinks. Apparently these gender roles haven't stopped you from being, well, whatever the fuck you want to call yourself.
Fourth is sexism, which you've definitely heard of. Sexism is the institutionalized discrimination against a gender or a gender.
Oh, so you mean like how men get longer jail sentences for the same crimes, or women disproportionately winning custody battles, women having the right to choose abortion or life and completely disregard the father's opinion, yet if she decides to have the kid, he's stuck paying for child support till the kid's 18? Yeah, that sure sounds like sexism against men to me. I mean, that is at least according to your definition.
Because it has to be institutionalized, that is, built into our societal systems, you can only be sexist against women or other gender minorities.
Yeah, women are such a small minority in this country. Wait, what's this? Appears to be the US Census records of 2010. Wow, you know, in 2010, the population was 49.2% male and 50.8% female? I must have missed that female genocide of 2012. Anyways, back on topic. Why not address my points of men being institutionally oppressed?
Yeah, there are people who will argue that you can be sexist against men, but that's an unnecessarily defensive argument over semantics.
Semantics? Are you fucking kidding me? I mean, I used your definition of sexism, and still, nope, it's a semantic argument? You know, I hate to always be saying, well, you're kind of the ones doing that, but you're kind of the ones doing that. I can't even begin to tell you the number of feminist videos I've seen where they argue the definition of whatever dumb feminist topic they're trying to get across. You can't get any more semantic than that.
Does sexism require institutional backing? I would say yes, and because of that, only gender minorities, including women, face sexism.
Oh, why'd I freeze frame him on that? Reminds me of the next morning after being really drunk and waking up with a chick who was ugly as fucking still horny, and you're like, oh, what the fuck did I do last night? Not that it happened to me or anything, I swear. Anyways, let's get off this fucking frame. Ugh. There we go, that's a little better. Anyways, he's saying how it has to be institutionalized, and that's why only women blah 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 blah, whatever the fuck he's saying. So apparently he's the only one who's able to define that for everyone. Dumb semantic fuck. Anyways, I already addressed his real points earlier. So yes, men have also been institutionally oppressed if you want to look at it that way.
While men can still face discrimination.
Men can't face sexism, but they can face discrimination? Who's the idiot pulling semantic arguments now? I mean, for fuck's sake.
If you say no, then you think everyone can face sexism.
Yeah, I don't buy into that whole institutionalized sexism argument. But even if you did, there's still arguments for men being oppressed. I think sexism is just discriminating based on gender, or even perceived gender. So yes, if I said I turn off the GPS voice of my car because I don't need another woman barking orders at me, then yes, that would be a sexist statement. A funny one, but still a sexist statement. But women make sexist statements about men all the time, and that's just looked at as being factual to feminists.
Like I said, arguing about this isn't very useful and only serves to deny that there's institutionalized gender discrimination.
Guys, there's no point in talking about this because we all know that I'm right, and if you say anything, it just means you deny the conclusion I already have in my head. So, like, why are we talking about this?
What I mean by that is how sexism is baked into the very foundation of everything that we do.
Fuck, speak for yourself. I mean, to the extent that at first glance everyone uses some form of preconceived notions, I mean, even morons like you who look at a black person and say, I'm sorry, you've been so oppressed your whole life. You know, not every black person feels Whitey is there to hold them down.
It's how most characters in any show or movie are men.
Well, seeing how men are more likely to be really into TV shows and movies, I'd say that is the key reason why shows have a tendency to cater to men more.
It's how women are catcalled and harassed on the streets daily.
I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but a woman is not going to go up to a man and be like, hey, want to go out? Or whatever, you know, however she wants to initiate it. Most women get mad when a cute guy across the bar doesn't go up to her and say hi. So while there are men who are just really bad at talking to women when they say, hey, nice ass, Woody. But the fact is that most of what women call catcalling isn't vulgar like that. And, you know, there's that dumb video where a woman walks around New York City for 10 hours and most people talking to her were a shop owner saying good morning. Yeah, there's bound to be a few assholes when you're walking through New York City with hundreds of men walking by you. But to blame the actions of a few morons on an entire gender is ridiculous. Much like I don't think all women are stupid. Just the ones who think feminism is for equality.
And it's how women are paid less than men for doing the same work.
How many times are you fucking morons gonna say this shit? That's simply not true. That statistic does not factor in the fact that women have a higher likelihood of prioritizing family over work. They're out for several months for every kid they have. They typically are less interested in jobs that pay higher. They tend to work less hours. All these are not accounted for in your stupid statistic of men make more than women, therefore sexism. Taking all women's average income versus all men's average income is the most simplistic viewing of the world and completely void of nuance. But of course, it's a lot easier to yell a buzz statistic like that than it is to actually look into the reasons why it's happening. In your minds, it can't possibly be due to women's life choices. It's always how women are victimized and hated. Well, I'm sorry, but your narrative is nothing but a work of fiction.
When we say that we hate sexism, we mean that we hate how discrimination so negatively affects us.
Well, you certainly haven't listed any reasons why it actually does affect you. All you said is a bunch of bullshit, and I have said exactly why that's wrong, so yeah.
This doesn't mean that we hate men or that all men are sexist. It just means that we hate the discriminatory actions against us.
Once again, I've debunked every single reason that you've given, so yeah, I just don't see it.
Fifth is male privilege, which goes hand in hand with sexism. If sexism is the idea that gender minorities are at a disadvantage, male privilege is the idea that men are at an advantage.
You know, just because you call it an idea, that doesn't mean you have any idea what you're talking about. Men are advantaged in some ways and women are advantaged in other ways. To say that only men have privilege is being incredibly naive.
Now, that's not to say that all men have it better than everyone else. You also need to account for class, race, ability, and all of that.
Yes, you always have to take into account nuance.
But in general, if women are losing out, men are gaining something from that.
And what exactly are these men gaining, huh? These men Oh, I don't want to gain that. Oh.
Obviously, if you're a man, that's not your fault. You didn't create the system that we're in. But you do benefit from male privilege. When you're loud and demanding, you're more likely to be called strong than bossy.
No, I think you're more likely to be called an asshole or a jerk or a douchebag or, something along those lines. But strong, I'd say they're just insecure fucks. And that's more what I would say. And that's what I think a lot of people would say.
You can walk down the street without having to worry about catcallers.
That's also not true. I was in Thailand and I got a taxi, but all of a sudden the guy stops to pull over and asks where I'm going again. I told him the same place I told him initially, and he says triple what he initially says. So I said, fuck that. I got out of the cab and I'm in the middle of nowhere. Like, there's nothing there. Except there are like 3 or 4 massage parlors, which in city areas like that is just another name for a brothel. And there are women outside catcalling me. Hey baby, you come for a massage, I'll treat you real good. Hey sexy, come in, we'll take good care of you. Now, you could say, yeah, but that doesn't happen all the time. Well, I've had weird shit like that happen to me more times than I'd like to count, but the fact is we all have to deal with shit, and I don't blame the entire country of Thailand because some hookers are trying to get business from me. I got myself into a situation like that, and you know what? I dealt with it. I wasn't a fucking bitch about it.
You can dress how you want.
Wait, men can dress how they want? From my experience, it's always the women telling me, oh, you can't wear those shoes with that belt, you can't wear that shirt with those pants, you can't wear this with that, with this with that. I don't fucking care. I don't give a fuck. I care about comfort. That's what I care about. And you fucking cunts are always talking about that shit. Fuck off.
Or sleep with who you want.
If I slept with everyone I wanted to, I'd be in jail many times for rape. Because they say no.
And you won't be called a slut. Having male privilege doesn't make you a bad person, and we don't hate you for it, but you do need to be able to recognize it.
Oh, I recognize privilege. I just happen to also see a lot of female privilege that is kind of ignored, so yeah.
And lastly, there's misogyny, the hatred of women. This is very similar to sexism in that it's used to talk about things that are harmful to women, but I feel like misogyny has more anger behind it.
Well, seeing feminists use it interchangeably, I don't see much of a difference in the actual application of the word. But then again, feminists do just splur out random talking points and ignore everything else anyone says anyway, so yeah.
But I think what really trips people up is that they don't want to be branded a misogynist.
You mean no one wants to be branded as something that makes it okay for them to be fired for it? Also having the potential to be harassed for something that could be nothing more than just an accusation? Yeah. Why wouldn't they want that?
Because you can definitely do or say misogynistic things without necessarily being a misogynist.
So you're saying I'm not a misogynist for making sexist jokes. That's good to know. Thank you.
We're all constantly growing and evolving, and we're all raised with misogynistic ideas in our head.
Generalizations. Feminist's secret weapon.
So yeah, sometimes we're going to say or think misogynistic things. But when someone says, hey, what you just said is misogynistic, they're not saying, you're a terrible person who hates women.
You're just a white fucking privileged racist fucking male that doesn't stand for women's rights.
Oh, I must have misunderstood that, Snaggletooth. Oh, stop making those faces at me. Oh.
They're just saying that what you said contributes to the hatred of women, so maybe you should reconsider it. Hating misogyny means standing up to things that degrade or demean women, and oftentimes men feel like it's their right to be able to treat women like that.
Oftentimes, well, then you know what I can say? Oftentimes, women tell men how wrong they are about everything. I mean, it certainly applies to feminists who are always labeling everything as sexist. So yeah, I can use the word often just like you do. That way, if someone's not like that, I can use it as an excuse to be like, well, I just said oftentimes, not every time.
So I think that by fighting misogyny, sometimes men feel like we're telling them what they can and cannot do.
Well, according to feminists, everything a man does is considered misogyny, so yeah, you're kind of telling us what we can and can't do.
But obviously, you're free to say misogynistic things if you want, but we're free to criticize those things.
You know, normally criticism has a little bit more substance than,
you're misogynist, you're sexist, you hate women, don't you?
That's not really criticism, that's more harassment, if anything. And so if you really want to see harassment, just listen to what other feminists say about men, because that's kind of what they're doing.
And it really doesn't hurt to think about the consequences that your words and actions have towards women.
The consequences of me saying that feminists have poor logic and their facts are nothing more than manipulated statistics, and it's very easy to say why they're wrong, well, the consequences are either a feminist or white knight will get offended and mad at me, people will agree with me, or people just won't care. So I see it as mostly positive saying it.
By hating misogyny, we're literally hating the hatred of women. I feel like that's something we can all get behind.
Yes, in theory, but unfortunately, feminists don't exactly apply it the correct way. They label everything as being misogynist, which it just isn't. So when a group is known for doing false labels all the time, it kind of loses meaning when they use the word, whether it's true or not.
So these are the 6 things that feminists hate that aren't men: toxic masculinity, the patriarchy, gender roles, sexism, male privilege, and misogyny. These are all clearly related to men, but they're not men.
We don't hate men, we just hate all these things that every man does.
In fact, dismantling a lot of these things would help men too.
See, what confuses me is if you think that there is a wage gap, as you put it, if suddenly there was equal pay, where would that money come from? Would it come from the other men's salary so they would then get less money? So how would that benefit them? I don't agree that there is a wage gap, so yeah, that's a completely non-issue, but what exactly would help men?
I hope that's clear. Feminists don't hate men. Saying that we do avoids addressing our real argument.
The problem with feminists is they have this narrative in their head, and if you don't agree with them, they'll do whatever they can to recite the same talking points they've heard a million times, and they'll get angry and yell at us. I always see feminists ignoring points and jumping right to the ad hominem attacks, so what you're saying just doesn't line up with the experiences that many people have had with feminists. Now, either you're in denial, or you're just oblivious to the actions of how feminism is applied in this day and age. Anyways, if you click off this video right now, the feminists win. If you like this video, you know what to do. Subscribe for new content. I create tons of videos calling out bullshit on the world. You can check out my previous videos, like part 1 of this video. You can watch my reply to Anita Sarkeesian's strategic butt coverings. Also, white person responds to questions from black people. This is the Booze and Bullshit Show. Shit happens, we make fun of it. Do you have an idea for a video you'd like me to cover? Well, let me know in the comments and I'll be sure to take a look.